And good morning one more time, everyone. Saturday, April 4, 2026. Saturday morning, phone number is 303-696-1971. We go into an open line segment, Jonathan Flora and Peter Boyles. It's going to be one of those days, 64, the high 70 on Sunday, and on Monday, 67 degrees, 303-696-1971. I think there's two good open lines topics. We did a segment on Victor Marks. I want to get your thoughts. We'd like to have you tell us what you think of Victor Marks. Do you buy this, or where is this going? Barbara Kirkmeyer is going to be with us later on in the morning, but in the next hour, talk about a home run. Boss, who do we got coming up in an hour?
Oh, I can't wait. It's going to be a great interview with Hall of Fame broadcaster Marty Brennaman, voice of the Cincinnati Reds for 46 years. Oof. And he's made so many historic calls over that time in baseball lore. And so we've got some queued up. We're going to be able to hear the actual call. And it's going to be great to look back and reflect.
When baseball was a radio game.
Yeah.
And...
Well, it's interesting. I want to bring this up to Marty, or I'm going to ask him anyway, because for me, football is a spectator sport.
Yes.
You're like glued to the field. Baseball was always like a companion sport, especially with Marty. He was always there. He's in the car with me. He's in the garage. He's at the park when we're probably doing things we shouldn't be doing. You know what I mean?
Oh, yeah.
And even when we go to a ball game, like Peter, you and I could be sitting there chatting. Crack of the bat, we look down and see what's going on, and then we go back to chatting.
Guys go and they take a guy, get a ticket, and they talk business.
Yeah.
I don't know if you do it with the NFL or hockey.
No, because you're glued. And I also am looking forward to talking with Marty because the game has obviously changed.
I really want to talk to him.
There's some big changes that have happened over the last 6 years, including this year. And it'll be interesting to see what his take is on that.
They've been trying to speed it up.
That's it.
Yeah. And
here's something I wasn't even really totally aware of until this season. It's called the Ghost Runner.
Yes.
And evidently it's been a few years now. So the Reds go into extra innings and they go, and at second base or something. I go, why should a guy at second base? Yeah. I must have missed something. And I found it really kind of put me a little bit more on the edge of my seat that this guy could score any moment. Not we could be to inning 18.
Yeah. I wrote a column once. As a kid, I'm working in a pool room, and I had to walk through a couple alleys to get back up to Allegheny River Boulevard. But no one had air, at least I don't know anybody that had air conditioning. But you remember those screens that you could expand, you can make them higher, you can make them wider? Well, people would put them in their windows, and then they put their radios. Why? I don't know. My mom did it, and put the radio in the window. And Bob Prince was the voice of the Pittsburgh Pirates, and his sidekick was Jim Woods. And I could walk home. I could listen to the ball game because the radios were in the windows. And I could go down.
You go down the street and never miss a pitch.
Down the alley, over this alley, that alley, and you could hear the game.
Well, WLW 700 is one of the last remaining power stations, one of the biggest ones. And when I was in the Army on a rainy night down in North Carolina, we could pick it up. And it would be Marty and Joe, and it'd be like a little slice of home.
50,000 watts, the clear channel stations.
There you go.
And then the ones in Mexico were 100,000, 150,000.
Birds would vaporize when they went through the tower field.
But that's where I met Wolfman Jack. My mentor, Bob Lee, knew him. I told you that story, that he knew the Wolf. And Wolfman, any radio station begins with X is Mexican. If it begins with C, it's Canadian.
And K and W for America.
Well, that's what Wolfman Jack was on. What were the call letters? XERO, I think, or I forget the call letters. But they were border radio stations, and there was one across from. God, I forget that, but they sold baby chicks. Remember you could splinters of the original cross. All kinds of cool stuff.
And isn't it the Mississippi River that splits the stations that begin with K?
K.
And then W is on the East Coast.
One exception. The first commercial radio station in America was in Pittsburgh, KDKA. And that's where the Gunner was, and that's where the Pirates were. But
see, dude, I learn stuff from you every day.
No. But we're all on this side. We're K. They're W's over there.
Right.
WNBC New York is a legendary station. But call letters meant something.
Yeah.
We've talked about it. KOA.
Who's your team? Who's your baseball team?
Oh, the Pirates of the 60s.
There you go.
I mean, they were really heartbreak kids, but we're jammed up on the phone lines. But
good.
I loved, and baseball was rarely on TV. On the weekend, there would be a game.
Game of the week.
You would get a game. But
Yeah.
It was Bob Prince, and after we would play baseball, then we would come home, and we're talking about selling bonds. I'm sure everybody had this experience, but we were given bonds because we'd have uniforms and that kind of stuff, and going into bars on Saturday afternoon, a $1 for a bond, and it was the bakery that brought the Pirates in, and they brought in Bob Friend. I can close my eyes. And I got them to sign the ball, and then I threw it. My brother and I threw it. Imagine a Roberto Clemente, Bob Friend, and Elroy Face.
And we scuffed the heck out of them they should have been on a shelf somewhere.
All that stuff, but we didn't know. But I remember seeing Roberto Clemente for the first time, and I couldn't figure out who he was. I mean, there was black guys in the neighborhood. It wasn't about being a black guy. He didn't speak English.
Yeah. It's like Tony Perez.
Same thing.
His post-game interview was always, well, I tried to see the ball, try to meet the ball. Kind of like that baseball's been very good to me gag.
Yeah. But that's when I think they figured out that there were better ball players, at least good ball players, in warm weather countries because they played 24.
We lived in Puerto Rico for a while when my dad was in the Navy, and we would play Puerto Rican school teams.
Kids were good.
Oh, we got wiped.
Yeah.
we got wiped all the time.
Let me run a couple of these and we'll go to the phones. I think Howard Cosell was the best sports announcer, in my opinion.
Till he watched the Washington Redskins game and made that comment. Well, you know what? And again, in history, that's how I found out John Lennon was assassinated. I was watching the Monday night game when that took place, and he was one of the first ones to break that story.
Next one. Bob Prince, baby, checking on the hill with Will. Well, what he did was he said, this guy means to write chicken. It's a legend. I was out of Pittsburgh by then, but I think it was Willie Stargell, and he said if Willie got a hit, he'd buy everybody chicken. There was a chicken joint up on the hill, and Willie planted it, and he had to cough up. Let me see. Peter Saludos enjoying the Rockies' 10-1 loss to the Phillies. God, this is tough. Brutal. Peter, the only long-term success the U.S. has had in the Middle East is the peace deal between Israel and Egypt. Yeah, but we pay for that. That costs the taxpayers. So let's go to the phones. We got jammed up lines. Here we go. We go to Nick in Denver. Nick, you're on a radio show. Thank you and good morning.
Thank you very much. I'll make this brief. I was listening to a show once, and I have no way of verifying this, but an Iranian said that the CIA overthrowing Mossadegh is not true, that the Shah was in power. He appointed Mossadegh as a prime minister. He got too big for his britches and eventually had to let him go.
Well, then why did the Shah flee?
People didn't like him.
They got rid of him.
Well, now his son is staging the comeback, right?
Just ask yourself, why did he flee? And then when they get rid of Mossadegh, why did he come back? I mean, it's like, and who brought him back?
I'm just saying what he said.
I know.
And I have no way of verifying it. I have no way of verifying it.
I think you just did. No, but we know now from, now released records, and we know what happened, and no, they overthrew him. They got rid of him.
But another question is, how long are you going to carry this grudge?
Who?
The Iranians against the West, especially the U.S. At some point, you have to cut your losses.
Okay,
yeah, they're going to be throwing rocks because it's all they're going to have left.
Guys, I don't know. I'm just telling you what the history of it suggests. Yeah. And there are some. We have my brother and I. We have a running gag. Do you know what Irish Alzheimer's is, by the way?
No, I don't.
You forget everybody except who you hate. It's my grandmother. All right, so there are people that have really long. I mean, should you say to, I don't know, fill in the blank, Native Americans, you guys ought to get over this. It's like, you know, go and tell those Cherokees or tell the Cheyenne or tell the Sioux Indians, get over it.
Well, you also have to tell them the tribe that you wiped out when you moved there, they got to get over. I mean,
there's always a top dog.
There's always somebody.
There's always a top dog. But
well, the trouble with the Native American problem is that we continually screw them. It hasn't stopped, really.
Yes, I get that. I see it every year when you go to Sturgis. It's a heartbreak.
It is,
Yeah,
and so there's no end to this. If there were an end, and we somehow improved our behavior, it might be a little different, but it's ongoing.
Well, there's another line from we were talking earlier about you, Trevor Roper, and the legendary great historians who, I think it's Trevor Roper who said there are parts of the world where there is no tomorrow. It is simply yesterday repeating itself. And so in a situation like that, I mean, I can show you those places. Ireland was one of them, and to a degree, maybe a little bit still does. But the Middle East, there was a story, and stop me again if you've heard it, there was a story that Kissinger told, and Kissinger was a great storyteller to make his point, and it was the frog and the scorpion. I'm sure you've heard the story where
Right.
And he said, "Why did you do that?" And
That's what I do.
Scorpion said, "No." Scorpion said, "It's the Middle East."
Oh,
That's what the
I
scorpion
feel
said.
bad. I jumped your line. I had the wrong line.
No, it was the.
Well, I heard the line was, "That's just because I am the way I am."
Mm-hmm.
Well,
Same thing.
but saying it's the Middle East, and by the way, this is I guess the two of you go tell the parents of those 150 girls who were bombed to death to get over it. Man. I mean,
Tell the parents of the over 1,000 military men that were killed at the hands of Iran and proxies. You don't tell them to get over it.
Well, let me say one thing about that school bombing. From what I understand, that was a horrible mistake because they had outdated information. But
Yep.
we didn't do it on purpose.
100%.
but
And
why?
that's the difference between the two sides. The other side is
Exactly.
still
They
bombing
do it on
hotels and
purpose.
schools and embassies.
Yes.
Did you
They
ever,
do it on purpose. That was a horrible mistake.
the father of modern terrorism is Michael Collins, an Irishman. And a lot of people, Lenin was pretty good at it, but Michael Collins was the father of modern terrorism. And Lenin had the great line where he said, "The purpose of terror is terror." But what the Irish saw was they didn't have all the equipment that the British had. And so
No.
they began with kneecapping and doing the kinds of things that were done. And they eventually, through terror, forced the British out of at least part of Ireland. When you sit, and I'm not telling you that this is right or correct, but I said, but we already talked about what Lao Tzu said about knowing your enemy. And so when they talked to these people, and there was a guy by the name of George Habash, and George Habash was a Christian, he was a physician, he was Palestinian, and a lot of these guys wrote, and they would say stuff like, "We don't have airplanes, we don't have battle tanks, we don't have this, we don't have that, but we have is ourselves." And so when we put on a suicide vest and we get on a bus, we don't have a fighter jet, we don't have a bomber, we don't have AWACS, we don't have we have ourselves. And if you're at least willing to listen to what they have to say, the Irish didn't have they had risings, they had the IRA, but they didn't have an army like the British. They didn't have the TANs when they sent the TANs.
Yeah, but my counter to that, Peter, is it's not the technique, it's the target.
That's right.
Go ahead, be a suicide bomber, but don't go onto a bus. Don't kill a bunch of innocents. Don't slash a flight attendant's neck with a box
I'm
cutter.
telling you, I'm not defending them.
No, I know. I'm just saying that's the difference between a freedom fighter and a terrorist.
What is a freedom fighter? One, I think it was Trevor Roper that said, "One man's terrorist is another man's freedom
Yeah,
fighter."
I don't agree with that.
Well, King George would have gotten John Adams and hung him. Would have hung his wife. Would have hung him. Would have. Why were they going to be hung? Sedition. They were traitors to the crown.
Yeah.
It wasn't that they were just mad at the British. They were traitors. They wanted.
Right. But that's not a hospital. That's not a school. That's not a bus of innocence. That's not a plane being flown into a building.
But
you can't defend those tactics.
Once again,
again, Peter, I don't mean you. That's not a defensible tactic.
But once again, you look at generations of these people who have lived in these situations. Where Franz Fanon wrote a book called "The Wretched of the Earth," and it was one of the books that I tuned into and read about. And they're telling you that why are you here? And they said, this is not your country. You have no business here. Why were the multinationals taking the oil from these people? You have to answer those questions before. You can't. I mean, there's reasons why people do things, and that isn't just out of. I mean, I was in.
Let me say something. One thing.
Sure.
Most of what you said is true. I happen to be born in the Middle East, in Cairo, Egypt.
Okay.
And the Middle East is just different from the rest of the world. This goes back thousands of years. These grudges, and it'll probably never end. It's just different from Ireland or any other place that you mentioned.
In a way, yes, but in a pattern of history, no. The British come to Ireland, and they take it, and they impose their religion. They impose their language. They suppress the Irish. They steal their land. They do everything they can to them, and they run Ireland. And slowly but surely, the Irish fight back, and they get their country back. And it isn't clean. There's nothing clean about it. But they are called wars of national liberation. And they really begin after the Second World War, when principally soldiers who were the same thing, black Americans. When guys like Jackie Robinson, we're talking about baseball. When Jackie gets put in the Army or joins the, he's an officer, by the way, and they want him on the back of the bus, go sit in the back of the bus. And so these men come back from the Second World War, and when the Third World conscripted military go back to India, go back to Pakistan, go back to Saharan Africa, go back to Sub-Saharan Africa, and realize that they had went off to fight for the freedom of whom? White Europeans. And they said no. They said, that's where Uhuru begins. That's where Jumbo Kenyatta comes out of Kenya. That's where these guys are from. And they fought for what? The same damn things that we fought for in this country. Self-government. We want to be left alone. You have no business here stealing our natural resources and all the things that were happening in the world. And once you understand that dynamic, when the French leave Vietnam, why do we take their place? Why do we do these things? And this guy said, what's your shirt size, Peter? If you promise to wear it every day, I'll have a hair shirt made for you over most of the day. Has nothing to do with me, Texter. Has nothing to do with me. It has to do with what they think. And everybody has to get smart about this, because if not, fellas, you're going to do this one again. Thanks for your call, Bubba. All right, man, we're coming back. Hang on. 710 KNUS, Denver Stock Station on a Saturday. I'm Peter Boyles. Hang on.
Your 710 5-day forecast. Going to have gorgeous sunny skies for this Saturday in the Denver Metro. Comfortable temps in the lower 60s with clear skies tonight and lows around the upper 30s. For Easter Sunday, we'll start warming into the upper 60s. Sunny skies finishing up the holiday weekend with lows upper 30s, low 40s Sunday night, skies clear. Getting back to work Monday, sunny upper 60s, lower and mid 70s Tuesday and Wednesday. By the afternoon and evening, we'll start to see some rain showers move back to the region. Meteorologist Don Watzel in the 710 KNUS Weather Center.
Saturday morning, everyone. April 4th. Tomorrow's Easter Sunday. Beautiful day, 64 today, 70 on Sunday, and on Monday, 67 degrees. Jonathan and Peter together again. Great guests coming up. We have one line open. We'll go back to the phones. This is David in Severance, Colorado. Hey, David, good morning. Thanks, man.
Good morning, gentlemen. You know, talking about Victor Marks, I missed the last half of last hour, but he is, to say the least, an interesting bird. Have you talked about or have you heard the
More than once.
story he told about having to execute a guy in the basement and his stepdad had his hands on the gun and
It wasn't.
all that stuff?
It wasn't in a basement.
And as a kid, too.
As a kid,
Like
he was seven, I think.
something?
7.
And here's
yeah,
the
in
thing
a
with all
crawl
these...
space or,
Allegedly.
something.
Yes.
And here's the thing, again, that we were talking about in that first hour. With all these stories, we get no actual confirmation, and we get no actual, no, that didn't happen. There's no receipts either way, which I find pretty interesting. And so all these stories continue to circulate and take on a life of their own, and we just don't know what the truth is.
Well, something.
But he's like the most interesting man in the world.
Yep.
Yeah. When you make a claim like that, the one that was the sore thumb to me was his martial arts claims. And I just happen to have lots of friends who really do that for real. And a 7th degree black belt in jiu-jitsu is,
Right.
I mean, no. I just say no. A 7th degree black belt in karate, that's self-promoting. What's happened to karate in the world is almost laughable from what it once was. But you look at those guys. I went to the fights last Saturday, and you see those guys in the ring. You don't want any part of that. You don't want anything to do with that. And these guys they've trained for years and years and years in their 2nd degrees or 1st degrees. And you claim a 7th.
Well,
you got to present your papers. What school are you in? Who was your instructor? You know, and who was your instructor's instructors? Yeah.
You said last hour we've seen this guy before.
Oh, sure.
And throughout history.
Yes.
And there's something about him that it doesn't surprise me he's got a ministry.
No.
And he feels he's very engaging.
Yes.
I'll watch a video now and then and it's like, wow, this guy is a great voice. He could really be something good. And then you go, I don't trust any of it.
Yes,
No.
and to your point, we talked about that in the first hour as well. When you listen to him talk, he's captivating. He's got charisma.
Oh, my gosh.
He brings you in, but then you have to listen to what he's saying, but also to what he's not saying. And when we had those jiu-jitsu practitioners in here, and they were going through 7th degree black belt, it takes like 35 years of total dedication to do that.
Right.
If.
So,
And you just
and
say
they look
it.
at it as stolen valor of the jiu-jitsu world.
The jiu-jitsu players that I was with last Saturday, and the guys that are in the studio, and the guys that they call it roll. They roll around. My guy Briscoe and those guys, they're on to him. I mean, it's not important to them, but it's important to them. You can't do that. You just
And
can't
I'm
do it.
still trying to find out, and if anybody knows, please call us. What a black belt in firearms is.
Weapons.
What
And
does that mean?
I think he means the Okinawan style, and to a degree Japanese, but by and large Okinawan style karate has knives that are called sais, SAI. They're big for blocking blades. They have different things, rice grinders. A lot of the stuff that they have big staffs that are called bows.
Yeah,
and
but those aren't firearms.
No. They
I get it in
the
weapons. I
Okinawans
get it in
weren't allowed to have.
weaponry and the stars.
No,
you
the
know, that you throw.
Okinawans were not allowed to have weapons. The Japanese wouldn't allow them to have weapons. The Japanese, that's a great story, is the Menjis, when all of a sudden when the Dutch show up and they see guns for the first time. And remember, they had seen guns and they realized that a gun could take an average guy like me or an average guy like Jonathan, and we could kill samurai. And so they outlawed firearms to protect a class of people. And when they did, they put everybody on hold, and there was no guns. And then finally, and then the Prince Menji shows up, and it's the reclamation. He brings the modern world into Japan, and although it isn't particularly accurate, but it's a great film to watch. The Last
Samurai with Cruise, when they bring in the cannons and things like that.
They did have those fights, but the samurai class, and then they bring under Hirohito, they bring the samurai class back, and they make the emperor a deity again, and it's wonderful history. But look what they got out of that.
Yeah,
but not allowing for guns and modern equipment, and then Menji realizes how far in the rears they are. But then when they beat the Russians, wow, that just turned the whole world on its ear. They defeated the Russians. So now, and people realize that don't mess with these people.
Yeah. Well, back to Marx. Next week, it's going to be really interesting.
What's happening?
Assembly.
Oh,
so everybody's going to be doing their mad scramble, getting to the big building, the big show, and then we'll see what comes out of that.
303-696-1971. Lines are open. What do you think of Victor Marx? We've not done this segment on the air, and I think we should, or the war's also on the front burner. What do you think of the war and how the war is going? 303-696-1971. 64 will be the high. Tomorrow, Easter, 70. Be a good motorcycle afternoon. Sunny and dry and 67 on Monday. But Victor Marx he is this, where do you put him? This guy has appeared and reappeared and appeared and reappeared. We've seen him again. We've seen him before, oftentimes with a religious following. We've seen these guys. This guy sends me a note. The Irish won their republic from the Brits. Now the Brits and the Irish have given their countries over to Muslim invaders. What's the history lesson here? Well,
borders.
Borders is one of them, but remember where the Brits go. The Brits and using the Irish as their surrogates, they go to the Middle East. All these people did was follow the money home. They're like salmon. They're coming back upstream because that's where they found where you could go. So when there's a book called Londonistan. I don't know if you've ever read that, but they've some of it's changed back, but most of the expensive parts of London are now owned by people from the oil Emirates. It's a smart hedge because if stuff goes bad, it was always like the Cubans always banked in Miami. And they did. And so during the times before Fidel Castro, all the wealthy Cubans, and they're called the white Cubans. Desi Arnaz is an example of the white Cubans. And, he went to school with Al Capone's kid. Did you ever read that story?
I did not know that.
And when the time came when they had the untouchables, and you and our history geeks about the media, it is one of the very few times, if not the only time in American history, where a number one show was canceled. It was stopped. It was Desi Lou, and they made the Untouchables, and it was about Capone and everything that was going on. Well, Chesterfield was their sponsor, if I remember this correctly, and the Teamsters were not going to move the cigarettes. And there's a lot
cigarettes were healthy then.
Remember the guy doctors?
And I know you know this, so it's rhetorical for you, but for the audience, what does Desi Lou stand for?
Well, Desi and Desi Arnaz and Lucille Ball.
There you go.
And she went through it. She went through it.
As a mixed marriage. That was not cool back then.
But he was what was called a white Cuban.
Yep.
And so his son goes to private school with Al Capone's kid.
Interesting.
For real. And that was one of the ways that they could communicate when Desi Jr. said they're not happy. And so one of the, if not the only time, the number one show gets canceled. And Lucille, her grandfather, remember, she's from Minnesota, and her grandfather was a Trotskyist. He was a member of the Socialist Workers' Party. And in the American Depression, a lot of people were commies or joined communist parties or communist movements and united fronts. So when witch hunting began, and we were talking about Joe McCarthy off air, They were hunting witches, and they knew about her. And Desi gave a speech, and it was speeches entitled, "The only thing red about Lucy is her hair." And he stood in front of the cameras, because everybody, had gone to Trotskyist meetings as a girl and as a teenager, but she ran with gangsters. I mean, she had a great life, and she loved Desi, and I think she was engaged to another guy when she met Desi, and
Hollywood was interesting back then.
But all of those that class of Cubans that owned the sugar plantations and they banked in Miami, and so when the time comes when Fidel shows up, then Life magazine and Time magazine, that were really controlled by some pretty interesting people at the time, they did these glowing stories about how these Cubans came to America and got rich. And they hadn't. They just came to their money. And the Shah did that. That was the Shah's money. That Jimmy Carter froze the Shah's money. And when the time came, it was under the time of Obama, but they gave the money back because they were going to lose the money on military hardware. And they went, and that's when he sent John Kerry, goes and meets the mullahs, and I think the mullahs had him at a low when he walked in the room, but they took the money, and the money never leaves America. It goes to Northrop and Boeing and all the prime defense contractors. They got the Shah's money, and they gave the money. And then when Donald Trump becomes president, literally on the same plane, same people, same lawyers, they go to Saudi Arabia. They sell the same thing again. No, for real. I mean, it's like a wonderful story. But the money that was frozen. Remember, and also Jimmy Carter threw Iranians out, deported them, got them out of the country. And I told you that story when the secret police, the Shah's secret police, the Savak, and you remember Iranian students, they put bags on their heads and stood and they said things about the Shah. Yeah. And I got a caller who says the Shah did not flee. He came to, no, he didn't. The Shah, this goes early in the 50s. Yeah, this is, when Shah got sick. So, anyhow, 303-696-1971. What's the lesson of the Irish and the Muslim invaders? You go mess around with these people, and you go to their country, and they come home with you. That's what the lesson is. It's repetitive, and they don't know quite what to do. You're absolutely right. And now we're building mosques in this country, big ones, big mosques. Now we talk about freedom of religion. Do we mean it?
Depends. Once again, depends on why you're here. If you're here to overthrow the country, no.
But how do you know?
Because they blow people up. Things happen. And again, I know we're going to probably get posts. I'm an Islamophobe. Not at all.
No, I know.
We're talking
legit.
We're talking individuals with individual action, not a group of people. Right now, I'm glued to the tube. I'm hoping they find that second pilot. And when you think about this, and it's prayers for the families. Thank goodness they recovered the first pilot. But when you look at the news, that one plane going down, when you look at World War II, how many thousands and thousands of planes went down? I mean, 43,000 planes went down, 150 just in the Battle of Midway alone. So this war is being conducted very effective, but we're looking for one man, and I pray to God that we find this pilot.
But that's the sense that nobody understood about us, is that we do that. That what was Stalin's, how many people are and that's just a number, and they would lose person after person after person, but he beat Hitler.
He was one of a few that beat Hitler.
He beat Hitler.
Yeah. And this guy would shoot retreating troops.
Absolutely.
And some guys were okay because that meant I got a rifle, because only like 1 in every 3 or every 4 troop had a rifle.
Have you ever
with 1 round maybe?
You ever been to Leningrad?
No, I haven't. My wife has been behind a curtain.
Well,
She was there when the coup took place.
The siege.
Yeah, it's amazing.
Harrison Salisbury wrote a book called The 900 Days. The siege, when they sieged Leningrad. And they have these incredible monuments. And anybody's ever seen them, they're to Mother Russia or Father Russia. They're not to Stalin. They're not to Karl Marx. They're not to Engels or Buchanan. And Stalin, as we're on a religious holiday, Stalin opened the churches that he had closed. He and Lenin's wife, and they went into the Gulag and they found Orthodox priests and they brought them out, and they reintroduced religion into the Soviet Union, and they weren't talking about fighting to save the communist mother. They were fighting to save Mother Russia. And remember, he goes into shock and won't talk to anybody, and finally comes out of it. They ring church bells again. That's a really interesting lesson in history. All right, everybody, your turn. 303-696-1971. How do you think the war is going, number one? Number two, Victor Marx, your thoughts. Saturday before Easter, we have one line open. Jonathan, Peter, all together waiting for a big guest. Barbara Kirkmar is coming on the radio show. Wants to talk also about Victor Marx, and she'll be with us in the noon hour. And coming back, of course, is John Brooks. He'll be back with us. We'll go to the phones with a line open. This is Gary. Gary, you're on the radio show. Good morning and thank you.
Oh, hi, Peter. Can you hear me okay?
Absolutely.
The weekend after we started bombing Iran, you had asked, why do you think Trump is doing this? And I called in. I said, he's doing it to enrich himself and his family. I said, I don't know exactly why, but we'll find out eventually. And I wanted to mention to you two reports this week. One, Jared Kushner, who's supposed to be negotiating the peace deal with the Iranians, is also lobbying for investments in his hedge fund. And secondly, Donald Trump's sons have an ownership interest in a company in Florida that sells anti-drone defense mechanisms, and they're pitching that to the Gulf states and insisting that they buy from their company in order to protect themselves.
I saw all of that, but how much money do you think the Trump family is worth? Seriously. What's a real number?
Close to $1 trillion.
Why would you try and nickel dime a drone deal and make that the reason for a war? I'm not defending, I'm only asking.
It's kind of like drinking. All I wanted was more.
You know,
but even if it's
go ahead.
Even if it's a small, I guess you're saying, why would they do that? I don't know, but if you're doing it, it's disgusting. And Trump does it all the time. It's just incredible. I'm fine with the war. I don't know enough about it to say whether it's appropriate or not. But this enriching himself and his family is just disgusting.
I realize that he's made a tremendous amount of money in his life prior to office seeking. And I'm not saying he hasn't made money while in office. But if somebody suspects that he started a war so his boys could make money in the drone business, I don't know. Jonathan?
Well, in the family value, I just looked it up. Their net worth is about $10 billion.
Billion?
Billion.
That's a lot.
So to run that kind of risk, to your point, I don't know why you'd be nickel and diming on something that puts American lives at risk.
Yeah, I mean, listen, people that have never had a nickel in their life and become president retired. Lyndon Johnson's a classic example. Look at the Obamas. Nixon came from no wealth and retired as a wealthy man. Mm-hmm. I think it's part of it. Reagan, I think, probably had a couple of bucks and became Reagan, but they are also taken care of by their friends, are they not?
Yeah.
And so Lyndon Johnson ended up with the AM, FM, and television stations in Johnson City, Texas, named after himself.
Yeah.
And how much money do you think? I wonder if Jack Kennedy made money for his family's fortune while he was president, because Joseph P. was there.
Yeah. Well, and Joseph Jr. was the man till he was shot down in World War II.
Yeah, the plane blew up, it's believed, but Jack never had a job. He didn't have a job. He was in the Navy, and I mean, he did all those things.
No, he wanted to be an author. He wanted to write books. Historian.
Yeah. And he never. So, presidents retiring. Barack Obama, very wealthy man. He's there. Lyndon Johnson, again, was my classic example of never having a job.
Nancy Pelosi never made a dime.
No, she's. What did she make? $11 million or something on one deal? And no, they.
Little insider trading there.
303-696-1971. Going back to, we opened the show talking about Victor Marx. Now, next Saturday is the show down in Pueblo, the convention. What do you think of this guy? We've laid out, now we're talking. What do you think of him? What do you know of him? what questions would you like him to answer? And of course, talking about the war in Iran. How is it going? And now from taking a position that was, 12 days ago, unconditional surrender. Well, the unconditional surrender moments come, and they're simply that, unconditional. You don't say anything to me, and I will tell you how it's going to go down. They told the Japanese, this is what's going to happen. All those conversations were way before they signed on the deck of the Missouri. They had the conversations, this is how it's going to happen. The Little Red Schoolhouse, when the Germans surrender, unconditionally. The Italians surrender, unconditionally. There is no, it's one of those historical great rubs, but the SS had a general in Italy, his last name was Wolfe, and Wolfe was allowed to surrender to John Foster Dulles' brother Alan, keeping the Soviets completely out of it. And that's, some people believe, the beginnings of the Cold War. But you have to have unconditional surrender. Well, now, is it changed? Remember Grant, and he meets Robert E. Lee at Appomattox. It's unconditional. He allows the Confederates, were they allowed to take their guns home? I think they were.
They were.
And their horses?
And their horses, absolutely.
But that was...
It was very much a gentleman's agreement, but it was a lay down your arms, you are done completely.
And it was his, that's right. And they were unconditionally, and of course, Reconstruction begins and everything. But the Germans, this is it. If you don't, we're going to keep this up. And we now know from the great books that are written by the people called the atomic historians, 2 atomic bombs. And these guys aren't quitting.
Yeah.
And there was another one in a place called Windover, Utah, and the call is made. Get that bomb rolling. We're going to need it. And of course, then they surrender. So,
well, what's going to be really interesting, Peter, is we've had other presidents, Obama and Biden, that just kept saying don't. They would draw lines in the sand, and it meant nothing. It would just keep moving.
Yeah.
Well, it was announced again this morning that the deadline that Trump's put out, he says, we are hours away, and you better come to the table, or in his words, we're going to bomb the hell out of you. So we'll see if his line moves or if he does what he says.
Or renewing bombing. That was the trick, allegedly, of the war in Vietnam that was called Rolling Thunder. Rolling Thunder, B-52, the Arc-Light raids. And Nixon would do it. And what
are your thoughts of the B-52s being brought in?
What's
that?
That means something.
Yeah.
They're not
the precision bombing that we've been doing. I mean, we're taking out missile launchers on trucks.
Yeah.
This is so different. And I don't know if B-52s in this day and age, if that just means carpet bombing, because that would be the last thing you want as you start dropping on civilians.
And dropping what's called dumb bombs.
Exactly.
Yeah,
they're just going to hit the ground. They're not going to be zeroed in on a target.
Yeah. And I've been told by people, we have to take a turnaround, and we'll come back to calls, but that they can read, if you have a pack of cigarettes out of your pocket, they can read the brand you smoke. Can you imagine being able to see that clearly? They can read the brand that you smoke. And so
I think that's amazing. I think it's also amazing when Israel took out a bunch of bad guys with beepers.
Yep.
And I don't know what was more amazing, that they could do that with beepers or that the bad guys still had beepers.
All right, talk about Marty. Marty's coming up. All right, give the billboard.
All right, we got Marty Brenneman coming up. He's a Baseball Hall of Fame broadcaster, voice of the Reds for 46 years. Wow. Good friend of mine. And how often do you hear broadcasters 40 years and with one team? So we're going to talk a lot of baseball history and a story that Peter Boyles is going to love.
You got one that's on the one and only, the Macho Man.
Yes, sir. Macho King at the time. It was one of those little moments.
And he was a ball player.
He was in the Reds and the Cardinals organization as a catcher.
As a catcher.
You're right.
And so, all's well in the world. Hang on Saturday morning. Tomorrow is Easter. Stay here, 710 KNUS.